If you want to think what you've never thought and become who you've never been, you have to read. Not just inspirational posts, not summaries, but books. Books have more detail, better sources, and go through more rigorous editing than anything else you'll read online. And most importantly, books will not lie to you. They will not hold back a truth because they don't think you're ready for it yet or because they think you can't handle it. The bar is far higher for books than anything else that you can possibly read. And reading them is like grass-fed steak for your brain compared to the processed sugar of X threads or LinkedIn posts or whatever else. They say that readers are leaders. And I know from experience after interviewing hundreds of entrepreneurs at the highest levels that they are voracious readers. And they aren't just looking for one-off ideas or things that are just interesting. They're looking for books that offer perspectives that differ vastly from their own. Books that reveal what they aren't currently seeing. So today I'm sharing 7 lessons from 7 books that came up again and again. And reading these books changed me more than any mentor, more than any conversation, and even many deep personal life experiences. So if you want to achieve more while actually working less with less effort than ever, be more present and feel freer in every moment, and understand yourself at the deepest level possible so you can become the best version of yourself, these 7 books are worth your time. Book number 1, Stealing Fire. This book changed my life, not just reading it, but actually working with the team to launch it. It peaked out in the top 20 of all of Amazon, was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and the author, Stephen Kotler, credited me with turning this book into a movement. And the funny thing about this book is that it's a book about drugs, among other things. And yet the people who talk to me the most about it, even today, are leaders, founders of 8-figure media companies, authors who speak to the United Nations. And I think the reason why is that Stealing Fire reveals the truth of what leaders are doing to reach the edge and stay at that edge and hack their lives for flow so they can live and perform at the highest level possible. You may wrongly assume that the people who live and operate at the highest echelons of society and business are buttoned up squares who wear suits and ties. But the truth is that they are often the most out there, far out people that you'll ever meet. A lot of times they're total weirdos. And the difference between them and normal people is that they know how to integrate and unpack what they discover out there and in these experiences that expand their consciousness. And they find ways to help what they learn improve their lives back home and in their workplaces. So in Stealing Fire, you actually learn what flow is, what the qualities and traits of flow are, how there's a predictable process with triggers to get into flow on demand, and what mavericks at the bleeding edge of every field and high performance, from Red Bull athletes to Stanford psychologists, are doing to harness this altered state to feel and perform their best. I highly, highly recommend it. Book number 2 is The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. This is actually another book that I helped launch, and I'm actually in the book itself, but it fits right there with the last book because this is a book fundamentally about 10 extraordinary individuals, and the author and founder of Mindvalley who wrote it, Vishen Lakhiani, who's nothing short of an extraordinary individual, what they do to live incredible lives while being the happiest and most fulfilled they've ever been. It's interesting to me because Vishen is an engineer, and yet the book is about meditation, altered states, and living a mission-driven life. But not in an anecdotal way. He breaks these things down like code, like an engineer would, and shows you how to engineer altered states, meaning, happiness, and fulfillment into your life, no matter what your starting point actually is. So I had a hand in editing this book and was also asked to live the quest of this book alongside it being written, learning from these experts and Vishen himself. And it was one of the fastest, most condensed ways to get the insights that took Mindvalley to an 8-figure business and turned Vishen into a founder that actually could steer that kind of growth and build not just a business, but a movement. And how, as an individual, you can learn to be both spiritual and wealthy, effective and at peace, highly productive, and highly happy at the same time. So again, I highly recommend this book. The third book is Be Here Now. And this is a pretty weird looking book. And if you look through the pages of it, it's even weirder on the inside. I'd say this book is more of an experience to behold than it is a lot of pages with words to read. At first glance, you can immediately tell that this is unlike anything else that you've ever picked up. Every word on every page looks like it was stamped, right? It looks like someone was high on acid and just went crazy making it, and that's actually pretty close to the truth. If going crazy means shedding all the illusions of life that rob us of present moment awareness, happiness, and peace. It was written by Ram Dass, who's a popular New Age meditation teacher and proponent of psychedelics. And he was admittedly on psychedelics while making this book and doing the illustrations. And reading this book is like getting his philosophy, his experiences, and a lot of really valuable lessons from Hinduism actually downloaded right into your brain. So I read this book actually during a difficult time in my life following a car accident when I stopped working retail jobs and started failing at things that I actually wanted to do. And, feeling like a failure, I didn't really want to be present with my life. I was trying to do everything I could do to escape being present with where I really was. I was really guilty then of living in a fantasy future of what I wanted to achieve and experience and working every day for what I might someday have while simultaneously not actually experiencing where I was, what I was doing then in that moment, because I didn't want to be there and I didn't want to feel the shame of failing. So I just separated myself from that and robbing myself of absorbing the experiences that I was having on a daily basis that would actually lead to the growth that I needed to live the life that I have now. So it's a very profound and actually a very quick read that could be summed up as this. There's only one present moment, and it is now. But the magic of this book is that reading it is more like an experience and something that sticks with you, something that shifts you, and you actually get to integrate its lessons that way, and it'll sink you deeper into the present moment than anything else you can do short of a really long meditation session. Because the more present you can be, the more of every aspect of your life will improve. So book number 4 is Fuller's Earth, and my copy of it doesn't even have a title. It's actually a very, I guess, old version of this book, and I got it from one of Buckminster Fuller, the author's students, actually, who is mentioned in this book. And really, it's a book about mathematics, which is kind of weird because I'm only okay at math. I can do business math, but like calculus, geometry, those things, they just don't appeal to me. But really what resonated with me with this about this book is the man behind the math, Buckminster Fuller. So Bucky, as many people call him, is regarded as a modern philosopher and inventor. He invented geodesic domes, which are the structures that are made out of triangles. Big domes made out of triangles that are far more integral. So that means they last a lot longer than most modern buildings. Most modern buildings in the room that you're probably standing in or sitting in right now is made out of squares. And basically what happens with the squares is they put pressure in the middle, causes them to degrade over time a lot faster than if you had two triangles together. They actually would distribute the weight through the middle along the edges, allows them to last and stand for a really long time. And a geodesic dome is basically a big sphere made out of triangles that uses that same integrity to become a long-lasting structure. If you've ever been to Disneyland, you've probably seen these because Walt Disney was a really big fan of them. They're actually all over the United States and different communities. And Buckminster Fuller is really well known for them. And he's really well known for the term spaceship Earth, which is his philosophy of unity and a cosmological model that transcends the whole notion that, you're from this nation and I'm from this nation, and you're from here or you're from there, or this is your skin color and that's my skin color. Instead, Spaceship Earth is the idea that we're all essentially passengers of this spaceship that is Earth. And there are many things like that, which we are taught there's one way of doing or thinking about or perceiving as we grow up, assuming that's the way to do that, when in reality, it's just the way that we were taught. And there's a larger cosmological perspective that can change the way that we approach something even as tangible as mathematics. So this book taught me that, and I liked it so much that I actually got one of his ideas tattooed on my skin when I was 19 years old. I don't know if you can see this. This is the Dymaxion map, which is a model of the Earth, but maybe not as you know it because it has essentially every country in perspective. So this little island here is Antarctica. So it's not a giant stretched out wasteland that stretches the entire bottom of the globe, but instead it's more of like a big island, maybe double the size of Australia. So it's the same land, the same continents and countries that we know, but the perspective is far different and far truer. So we're mostly used to different versions of the map that portray the country or continent or landmass that we are on as being in the center. So basically it's the one that's most in proportion while everything else is vastly stretched out. But this model is actually far truer, and it made me wonder, what do people value most? A map that puts their country at the center of it, or one that shows the land masses as they actually are? So it's a very interesting read and really an interesting way of looking at the world. Okay, book number 5 is The Culture Code. So this book is, or was, the most mind-opening book of all on this list for me. After reading it, to be honest with you, I fell into a depression for a couple of days. I have this big, soft, fuzzy rug, and I just laid on this rug and just thought about the things this book made me feel and the truths it made me accept that I could no longer deny. And it also made me feel a deep empathy for so many others and their way of view that is so different than mine, as well as shock for how many things that are innate to our cultures and my culture as an American that are actually engineered by smart individuals like Clotaire. So, if you want to learn how the world really works and why universal parts of life like love, death, sex, and religion mean very different things in different parts of the world, and better understand the meaning you were programmed to have, read The Culture Code. This is by far the most interesting book on this list, in my opinion, because the author, Clotaire, he's essentially a consultant who was retained at one time by most of the top 50 Fortune 50 companies, or he was at the time. He's the guy that large corporations in Japan called to ask them how to market coffee to a country that doesn't like coffee but loves ice cream. And so he actually discovered that their innate love for ice cream was the way to get them to love coffee by essentially Trojan horsing the flavor of coffee into ice cream and then having kids grow up in Japan eating coffee ice cream and then growing up to drink coffee as adults. He's also the guy that Jeep called and asked how to market their trucks to Americans when they weren't actually appealing to Americans. And so he found an innate love of Americans for horses and actually designed the Jeep to look like a horse and to have commercials where there are horses running and a Jeep going alongside it. And you've probably noticed that the headlights of different cars in different countries look like symbols innate to that country. So Jeep, I guess, looks like a horse. Subaru look kind of like samurai helmets. So it's that kind of philosophy. So he helped with that. This book also explains why the French let their cheese live and mold while Americans wrap theirs in plastic and store it in the fridge like a morgue. And in it, he shares an insight that's pretty upsetting that he believes the worst life to be reincarnated into is one as an American woman for all the things working against them in American culture. So it's a fascinating, fascinating read, and it will make you realize just how different we humans are because of the ways that we are raised and how to respect those differences and free yourself from some of the things that you've been taught so that you can't just assume that that's just the way that things are. Okay, book number 6 is The Paradox of Intention. And this is, again, a pretty bizarre looking book, and it's from the American Academy of Religion. So it's an academic book more than anything else. But the power of this book and what it can teach you will help you live and get what you want with far less effort. This book will stop you from burning out and help you achieve far more in your life without actually using as much willpower and without as much effort. If you can get through, its scholarly nature, and mine has notes in it, and it's pretty dense, and it references, a lot of different religions around the world and their lessons. But this is probably the most powerful book that can transform your life more than any other if you actually read it and understand and apply the lesson within, which is that you'll have an easier time of getting what you want if you aren't also attached to getting it. So we've all kind of experienced this phenomena, right? When we're stuttering our words with someone that we're attracted to, someone who's our type, and then someone comes along who we have zero romantic interest in, and suddenly we're a Casanova and we have absolutely zero self-sabotage. And then that person ends up being interested in us while the person we're interested in, we're a bumbling fool around. So it turns out actually this phenomena works on all levels. And in this book, it's actually referred to as the law of the reversal of intention for getting what you want. It's something that has been written about in Buddhism, Christianity, and it's perhaps the most important lesson to learn if you are highly ambitious and you want to achieve more frequently, while actually stressing less and getting in your way less often, by essentially divorcing the belief that success is hard work and instead by being unattached to the outcome while committed to your role of the process. This book goes into the nature of resistance and sabotage that stops us from getting what we want and redefines really what many would call the law of attraction and turns that into something that you can actually harness to achieve your most significant goals in life while actually doing less and having a more enjoyable time in the process of doing them. So I highly recommend it. And it's one of those books you can get the lesson from just from this one explanation of it. but it does really help to have these stories to integrate and internalize it so you can start to live this way and experience the changes in your own life. Okay, book 7 and the final book on this list is Mastering Your Hidden Self. So, if you want a book that goes deeper than Carl Jung on depth psychology, while also giving you a practical lens for learning from your higher self and changing your beliefs from the perspective of Hawaiian mystics, read Mastering Your Hidden Self. This book changed my life when I was about 17 years old or so, and it taught me more about psychology than studying psychology in university. It showed me that many things that we assume it showed me that many of the things that we assume you must be highly educated to know about can be learned from the lived human experience. And in this book, the practice of huna, which comes from Hawaiian mystics, is revealed, and their profound and simple ideas about things like the sub and superconsciousness, unconscious beliefs, the life force within humans, and the earth itself, which they call mana, and other things that many are obsessed with now. They not only these cultures, these shamans, these Hawaiian mystics not only had an understanding of these things thousands of years ago, but they also had perhaps more accurate words for them and entire systems of working with these forces, down to the detail of even being essentially a science dedicated to working with these higher aspects of the human psyche, believing in things that the psyche and the soul are the same thing, and how to use these forces for healing, for self-realization. And the funniest thing about this book for me is actually how I came to discover it. So this book was recommended to me by Neil Strauss, who's a famous pickup artist. He wrote the book The Game. And I read that book when I was a teenager because I wanted to learn how to talk to girls. And this was the most interesting book that on a list of books that he recommended, because everything else was about more directly how to talk to girls. This one was about like Hawaiian magic, basically. And I find it so hilarious because this is a book that basically leads to a type of enlightenment. And yet there was this whole community of young men and older men who found talking to women so challenging that it was simply easier for them to become enlightened along the way by comparison. It was literally just, start working with your higher self and these like forces of life force. And men found that easier than actually just going up and getting used to talking to women like they're just normal people. So I find that pretty hilarious. And yeah, reading this book will actually help you see the parts of yourself that may be a mystery to you and understand the interconnectedness between you, what you believe, and the rest of the animate world. So if you want to think what you've never thought, see what you've never seen, and become who you've never been, these books are where to begin. Each of these books changed my life, and I know they'll change yours. So in the description for this video, I'm sharing the link to every single one of them. They're not affiliate links. They're just links to Amazon, same place I bought these books, actually. So I recommend you pick out the one that calls out to you the most and read it, because new behaviors, new results, these things require new perspectives and new thoughts. So don't just rely on your algorithm to give you what you need. These books will give you something that you need that you will not find anywhere else. And what you get out of them will be so different than what I did. So pick one, give it a go, and then come back to this video and comment and let me know what you think. And if you've read one of these before, definitely let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'd love to discuss it with you.